Hey guys, today I have another sort of art philosophy video for you. And like most of my art videos, this isn't just applicable to other artists, but I think it has sort of a wide range of applications for anyone in any creative field, or even just doing anything really. And it's about why I actively choose not to be a perfectionist, and why I don't think perfectionism is good or worth it or anything like that. And I got the idea for this video watching another video about miniature painting, in which the title of the video was "The Price of Perfection is Prohibitive." And I agree with that sentiment a lot, because perfection, really, like the perfect thing that you create, it's an impossibility. It's never something that you'll actually get to. It's sort of like a platonic ideal, if you will. So you can have the platonic ideal of this drawing or whatever you're doing. You can have the idea of perfection, but it doesn't make sense to actually strive for that as a result, because you'll never get there. There's always going to be a flaw in pretty much every single thing that you do your entire life. And that's just the nature of human reality. We as people are flawed, and so are our creations. It's a sort of a common saying in the art community that if you make a perfect piece of art, it's time to retire. And that means if you make a perfect piece of art, you either are literally the best artist to have ever existed in human history, and you should stop now because you've peaked, because you're never going to replicate that again. Or more realistically and much more likely, you have gotten to a point where you're unable to see your own flaws and mistakes, which is so counterproductive that it might make more sense just to stop. And that's really kind of the key point here, is that by striving for perfection, you're going for this unreachable goal that if you think you reached, you're probably making mistakes still, and you just don't see them. And that's not helping you learn. That's not helping anybody else that's looking at your stuff. It's really just hurting everything. So why bother then? What's the point? At some point, we all need to look at something we've created and say it's done. So how do you decide when something's done? Oftentimes a deadline is the deciding factor. But without the constraints of a deadline, you either have to make an arbitrary deadline yourself, or you need to follow some sort of established rule or guideline that lets you know that, hey, I should stop working on this. It's ready to be posted on social media. It's ready to be shipped. It's ready to be produced. Any sort of thing like that. For me personally, the guideline I use when doing art, which is I often don't have a strict deadline for, but occasionally I do. But when I don't, I usually look at a piece, and when I realize I'm changing things, not in an attempt to make things better, but in an attempt to just change them. I'm changing them for changing's sake. And there's nothing wrong with that. I often do change a couple things around in the process just to see if I can find something better. And sometimes that is changing for changing's sake, because I have something that looks okay, but I might ultimately end up with something that looks better as a result. But at the end of a piece, if I'm just like, okay, this looks pretty good, I don't see any like obvious errors with it, I'm pretty happy with it, I think I've applied myself properly to this piece. And I start thinking like, well, what if they're wearing sunglasses? what if, you know, X, Y, or Z? And then I have to catch myself and be like, okay, that's not actually going to help anything. That's just me thinking that I want to change it for no reason. It's changed without a reason, essentially. And that's when I'm like, okay, it's done. This is a done piece. So you can see me doing a bunch of all kill teaser pictures here, a series of 6. And for each one of them, it was kind of like that process where I just had to be like, all right, we're done here. You know, I'll mess around with a couple of things towards the end usually. And then I'll be like, nah, you know, it was fine before. I'm a big proponent of the rule of thumb that 20% of your work gets you 80% of the way to the finish line. You know, 20% of the effort gets you 80% of the result. And for every percentage after that, you have to put in more and more effort. Which is like to get to 90% of the result, you're going to have to put in like 50% more effort. To get to 95% of the result, you're having to put in like 70% more effort. That's basically what I'm saying. It's sort of like an exponential curve that towards the end of the process, you're putting in so much effort and getting just so little out of it. It's an extreme diminishing return. So I just don't think that it's worth my time to search for perfection. I have better things to do with my life than to put in all of this effort towards this unreachable ideal, you know? We only have so much time in our lives in general. I'd rather just make another piece. The other thing that you lose by sort of searching for perfection is you don't get to share your pieces with anyone. And from that, you don't get to receive criticism, you don't get to receive, you know, compliments, you don't get to have other people express their feelings towards your art or anything like that. You don't get any feedback from anybody else. And that severely limits your growth as well. It's hard to grow just being in a vacuum chamber all by yourself, just working on a piece ad infinitum because it's not perfect. It's much easier to just kind of cut your losses and be like, hey, this is pretty good. You know, we'll ship it. Get some feedback, and now you're ready to tackle the next one with more knowledge in hand than you would have been if you just kept banging your head against the wall with the first piece. And you just keep doing that in rapid succession, each time getting a little bit more and more knowledge and a little bit more education about what's working, what isn't working, and everything like that. You'll improve at a much faster pace than if you try to make the perfect piece every single time. So this is a little bit of a shorter one as we come to the conclusion here, but I just wanted to share that because it's something I think about a lot during my artistic process, and I think it's important to keep in mind. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this video, I have plenty of others like it on the channel, and I will be continuing to upload more. So stay tuned for those, and please subscribe if you want to see some more new stuff as well. You can check out all my art on my Twitter down in the description below. And hey, if you are a perfectionist, leave a comment why. Why are you doing that? I'd love to know. I'm a curious boy. But yeah, I'm happy with how all of these pieces turned out. None of them are perfect, but I experimented with them. I sort of saw a good spot to leave them at, and you know, I shipped them. I sent them out into the world, and that's about all you need to do. Peace.